What up guys, it's Dragon Ball for Life here today and I'm back with another video. Now, I'm going to be reacting to Surfbone's video called Speed Tiering Explained, Power Scaling 101. Now, my last time I reacted to one of his videos, I only reacted to one of his videos, but the last one I reacted to was quite a while back. And, I said that I wanted to react to a couple of his other videos, but some of his other videos were a lot longer. And the other ones, they had topics that I really didn't care enough about. I'm not going to react to... The thing is, I don't mind reacting to, specific YouTubers' channels and, commentating about them. But they still have to have a certain topics that I care about. And if they do not, I don't really have any point about talking about it. Now, at that time, the only video that I cared about was the video talking about reaction speed, combat speed, and I forgot what the other speed was, but that was the only one that I really cared about on his channel to do a video on. I did see the speed tiering explained before, and I thought it was interesting and I had some comments on it, but just not enough for me to make a video about it. The only reason I'm actually making a video about this now is because I had that back and forth messaging with one of the guys on one of my previous videos, talking about Jiren being beyond time itself, and then the guy talking about other dimensions and stuff. Then I made the dimensional tiering is stupid video, and then I had some comments on there from him, and then on my what's the thing called? I had some comments on there for that, and I had some disagreements on that, and it made me think, you know what? I don't have just a problem with dimensional tiering. I also have a problem with these speed tiering stuff like infinite speed, incalculable speed, all these other types of speed that are given out. So I have some problems with that too. So you know what? I might as well just make a video on this. Though this video is quite long, it's 30 minutes, and I do talk a bit and kind of pause a bit, so it's going to be a lot longer than even that. I'll try to make it a little bit more short and more simple, but there's no promises for that, to be honest. Also I have a second channel if you guys want to go check it out, Music Elitist. I'll have the link in the description down below for you guys to go do that. I have dropped out two reaction videos to songs down there, so if you guys want to go do that, please do that. I'll help out a lot. So yeah, let's get into this video.
Now let's get into it. Starting off with the speed tiers that no one really cares about: below average human, normal human, athletic human, peak human, and superhuman level. These are the classifications for each one. Okay, so let's see. Below average human, it's 0 to 11.1 miles per hour. Okay, so the average human should be moving at 11 miles per hour. If you're slower than that, then you're below the average. Oh no, that's below the average human. Damn. If you're slower than that, you're worse. So that normal human speed, 11 to 17 miles per hour. Okay, athletic, 27 to 30. Oh no, that's kilometers. Yeah, why is that's weird? Oh no, the miles is down there. 17 miles. Okay, that's athletic. Peak, 22 miles. I'm not going by kilometers because I'm an American, and us Americans don't really give a shit about the metric system, to be honest. And then he said superhuman, 27.8. Now we're getting to the speed tiers that people might actually care about: Subsonic, Subsonic Plus, otherwise known as the speeds where things move faster than the human eye can perceive. Meaning, if you're looking at a race car or a bullet train in a standard direction, they would move across your field of vision as a blur as opposed to a clear image. Subsonic speeds in real life are defined as speeds less than Mach 1. Here, for more clear-cut classifications, subsonic speeds are being around Mach 0.1 to Mach 0.5, and Subsonic Plus being around Mach 0.5
76
to
miles
Mach
per hour.
0.9. A Mach number basically quantifies
383 miles per hour for the Subsonic Plus. Now, yeah, Mach 1 is just measurement of how fast the speed of sound moves at. And the speed of sound does change depending on the atmosphere. If it is hotter, it moves faster throughout the the air molecules. If it's colder, it moves slower, and it can go slower through other mediums like water. But yeah, generally, speed of sound, the fluctuation of speed isn't too much considering. The lower end is 750 miles per hour. The higher end is like 761 or 67, I think. But that's through hotter temperatures. And the reason that is because sound is just vibrational frequencies bouncing off of air molecules and stuff. That's why you can't hear in deep space, because there's no sound in deep space, because there's no real air molecules for the vibrations to bounce off of. So yeah, it bounces off of it. The more tight knit it is, the colder it is, the more tight the air molecules are going to be. So it's going to take more time to go through them all. Whereas the more hot it is, it's going to be more spread out. So it's going to be bouncing from it in a greater distance. So it makes it move a little bit faster that way. But yeah, subsonic plus, that would make you below the speed of sound.
Where an object stands in comparison to the speed of sound. For instance, Mach 1 is considered the speed of sound, and being below that, say, Mach 0.65, means the object is 65% the speed of sound. However, if you're above Mach 1, say Mach 2, that means you're 2 times the speed of sound. Although the speed of sound differs depending on the temperature and the altitude an object is traveling in, and technically there's no such thing as a fixed speed of sound.
Speed of sound is different than light. Light, I know some people say, well, light can go slower. There are ways to make light go slower. If it passes through a medium like water, it will go slower. Also, of what's the thing called? There's another state. There's multiple states. People think that there's just solid, liquid, and gas. Those states are there, but there's way more than that. And there's one called Einstein state or whatever, and that basically is, I think it's a super heated up gas, more than even plasma. It's more heated up than plasma, and basically by doing this you can slow down the speed of light so slow that even a human can move faster than that. There's a YouTuber called Kyle Hill who made a video on this. I think it was on his old channel, Because Science, and he made a video, or maybe no, actually it was on his Kyle Hill channel. He made a video talking about how humans can move faster than the speed of light. If you do that, it will make you slower than that. But those are through specific means. In general, speed of light moves at the same speed. The only thing is, I guess through the vacuum it's a little bit less, but compared to sound, the speed of sound really fluctuates differently depending on the temperatures, the atmosphere, all this other stuff. There's many different variables that can change the speed of sound.
For simplicity's sake, we'll just consider Mach 1, or the speed of sound, to be 330 meters per second. Then we get into transonic, or otherwise defined as approaching to just surpassing the speed of sound, which is Mach 0.9 to Mach 1.1, or 308.7 to 377.3.
Bullet trains, most of them are
There's not much else to
transonic.
say about this particular speed tier, so let's move on. Next, we move on to Supersonic and Supersonic Plus, aka the speeds in which are often referred to when objects, or fictional characters in this case, are traveling faster than the speed of sound, which most often results in the creation of a sonic boom. Supersonic speeds are I think most characters in fiction are supersonic and supersonic plus. There are quite a bit of light speed characters, but I think when you look at all fictions as a whole, majority of characters are in the class of supersonic or supersonic plus. So it's not as common to have a light speed character in other franchises, especially in anime. I don't know why anime, a lot of times they do have fast characters, but a lot of times they don't go to light speed. Marvel and DC, and I guess some other comic book companies too, they do incorporate more light speed characters, but still in general, I think in the forms of media of fiction, Supersonic and Supersonic Plus characters are far more common. Hypersonic is, I would say, somewhat as common, but not as close. Classified as going at Mach 1.1 to 2.5.
And that's how fast. That's also fast. Supersonic and Supersonic Plus is how fast most bullets travel from a gun. Obviously, there's guns that shoot at subsonic speeds. But majority of guns do shoot at supersonic or supersonic plus. So if you want to find out how fast a gun, like if a character's dodging a bullet, and you want to find out how fast they are, they would usually, if they're dodging bullets, they'll be categorized in the supersonic or supersonic plus category. Unless if it's like a very, very fast firing gun, then it'll be at a hypersonic, the low end.
Classified as going Mach 2.5 to Mach 5. To put things into a real-life perspective, most fighter aircrafts and spacecrafts are considered to be able to fly at supersonic speeds. Bullets fired from a gun fly at supersonic speeds, with some rifles being able to shoot projectiles even exceeding Mach 3. So if you're wondering where bullet speed characters would often go, they would be placed here.
So if you see somebody doing both feats,
hypersonic
supersonic or
all the
supersonic
way
plus.
up to high hypersonic plus. For the sake of brevity, I'll be combining it all the hypersonic team.
Okay, so he right here he put hypersonic as 3,886 miles to 7,672 miles per hour. So of a character, when you say hypersonic, you have to go through this hypersonic, hypersonic plus, high hypersonic, or high hypersonic plus. Because a lot of times characters just say this character is hypersonic, but there's many stages to the hypersonic, obviously, and here, and on top of that, there's a massive amount of speed difference of speed when it comes to that, also in that category. So if a character is hypersonic, you really have to specify which side are they on, because being on the lower end is nowhere near being on the higher end of hypersonic. But like I said, so they basically, you would be at almost 4,000 to almost 8,000, and then hypersonic plus would be almost 8,000 to almost 20,000, which is a crazy jump. Then you go to hypersonic, which is literally almost from 20,000 to 40,000, and then you go to high hypersonic plus, and you can go from almost 40,000 to over 75,000 miles per hour. So depending on the characters, they can go way faster. By the beginning end, the peak, by the beginning end compared to the final end, they go 10 times more. So if a character is hypersonic, for them to reach hypersonic, high hypersonic plus, the highest end of hypersonic, they would have to be at least 10 times faster than they were when they were hypersonic. So yeah, characters can surpass it 10 times. Doesn't sound like too much, but some characters it does take time. But yeah, that's just specifying that if a character started off hypersonic and showed feats, they would have to get at least 10 times faster for them to be high hypersonic plus.
Into one section with the differentiating stats being labeled here. Hypersonic speeds are often defined as speeds starting at Mach 5 and beyond that. In this case, the peak being Mach 100, or traveling 100 times the speed of sound. In other words, hypersonic is essentially supersonic, but on steroids. To again put things into a real-life perspective, the longest commercial flight in the US is a flight from Seattle to Miami, and vice versa. If you were to travel at hypersonic speeds, you'd be able to complete that journey in around 50 minutes, when the average commercial jets would complete that in around 6 hours and 40 minutes. Also,
I think one show that really represented speed very well, or the distance that you have to take, even with high speeds, was Assassination Classroom. The main guy in that, the octopus dude, he could go Mach 20, they said, I think. He could go Mach 20, and that would put him at, hypersonic. They would put him into hypersonic levels, and he took, like I said, I think he said like an hour to get to certain places, sometimes 30 minutes. So yeah, if you're that fast, that's how long it'll take you.
Velocity, which usually averages around having to travel 11,186 meters per second, only falls under the classification of being high hypersonic.
Okay.
So yeah, we still got a lot of.
So if a character can go faster than
Next, we go on to massively hypersonic to massively hypersonic plus.
Okay, that's where it always confused me, because I heard people say massively hypersonic and massively hypersonic plus, and the thing about it is, once when you get past the subsonic levels and the subsonic plus, it's just using hypersonic multiple times with just different variations into it. And I think the hypersonic class is the biggest class when it comes to speed feats, or speed in general, because there's so many different layers to it. Because the difference between the speed of light or getting close to the speed of light compared to the speed of sound is significantly big, so much to the point where you have to make multiple classes, because you can't just mash in all that speed into one. So looking right here, if you're massively hypersonic, you'll be moving at 76,000 miles per hour to 767 thousand miles per hour, basically meaning that you would get 10 times faster. So the last one, hypersonic, high hypersonic plus, you were 10 times faster than just hypersonic. Now with massively hypersonic, you're 10 times that. And with massively hypersonic plus, you're basically 10 times even that. So you can see that the speeds get crazy and crazier. It might be like, 10 times from that to that is not too much. But then you go 10 again, then 10 again. It's like, okay, you have to get quite a bit faster. And you're still not close to the speed of light at that point. You might be like 1% or whatever. But yeah, right here it shows 767,000 miles per hour to 6,706,000 miles per hour, which would be around like, I think like 10% the speed of, no, not 10%, like 1% the speed of light.
Going
Close to that.
Mach 100 to Mach 1000, and then Mach 1000 all the way up to Mach 8,800.
Yeah, 1% the speed of light.
So while the previous speed tiers were based off of IRL speeds and their categorizations,
because the speed of, if you want to know how many Machs are in the speed of light, it's like 888,000 something. It's just a bunch of eights, but it starts up at 888,000. That's how many Machs are in the speed of light. And the speed of light is like 671 million miles per hour. There's obviously other numbers there, but I'm just rounding it out. 671 million miles per hour for the speed of light.
This is more of a community-given term for speeds between high hypersonic plus and sub-relativistic. However, both of these speed tiers are most often referred to as speed tiers for lightning timers. Now, although there are many prerequisites and rules when it comes to calculating lightning in fiction, and especially in real life, heck, it might even deserve its own video. But for the sake of brevity, I'll be going off of this study provided by Versus Battles on...
I've actually made a video on it talking about lightning, so you guys should go check it out, But I already talked about that, and the whole reason I made that video was to talk specifically about people stating that this character is able to dodge lightning, because a lot of people get the concept of lightning misconstrued. They think that lightning, the way it works, is simply, if a character dodges lightning, that means they're almost the speed of light, or they're moving at the speed of light. No, lightning does not move at the speed of light. The light that is produced and emitted from it does, but that's not lightning itself. It's completely different. And if it was moving at the speed of light, here's the thing: it would move too fast. Lightning would be so fast that our eyes wouldn't be able to capture it at all. Or cameras, because we have cameras that captured, and I don't mean like those super advanced cameras that can capture at hundreds of thousands of frames per second. I mean regular cameras can capture fucking lightning. The fact that it is supposed to be light speed wouldn't be that slow. I want to see what he gets from it, because I already made a video about it. If you guys want to go check it out, I'll probably put the link of it in the description down below for you guys to go check that out.
On their lightning feeds page, where they have the average speed of lightning being around Mach 1,294 or 4,400,000 meters per second. Now we're finally getting into the speed tiers where the main topic becomes the speed of light rather than the Now we're finally getting into the speed
He said,
or 4,400,000.
That is wrong. Okay, here's the thing. He didn't do his own research. I did some research and stuff. I looked up on documentaries about lightning. I looked up articles and stuff. I looked up at science community boards about it. And in that video, I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis. The speed of lightning, there's two speeds. There's the return stroke and there's the initial stroke. Now, the return stroke is basically the lightning that comes down from above and it hits the ground and then it resends the lightning back up. What happens is there's a negative and a positive charge. I think the Earth is considered the negative charge and the clouds are the positive. And basically when that happens, they attract each other. So the lightning gets attracted to the ground and the ground's getting attracted to that. And usually we only see the attraction from the lightning to the ground. So we see it hits the ground, but it also sends one back. So when you see a lightning strike, it's not just one bolt, you see another one coming back up. And depending on those, which one it is, the speed is going to be different. For what I got for, the return stroke is actually faster than the initial stroke. The return stroke is stated to be, I think, 220 million miles per hour. And the initial stroke is 220,000 miles per hour, which is quite a bit slower. It's still pretty impressive for a character to be moving at that speed or dodging or even faster than that. But it is not the speed of light. First of all, lightning already is not the speed of light, but by that calculations, that would make it like at least like around like 1/3 the speed of light, and that's the return stroke. But the initial stroke is far less than that, which makes sense because we've seen a ton of characters dodging lightning, but not being faster than light. And I don't think that would make you faster than light. So the reason I made that video specifically for people who think that, oh, this character dodged lightning, so that means that they're light speed. Technically, no, they're not even close to light speed. Because let's be honest, what do we usually use the calculations from? We use the initial stroke, the lightning that comes down. When we see a character dodging lightning that's trying to strike them down. We don't see characters dodging lightning that's coming back up from the ground to the sky, which is the faster speed. If they were dodging that, then they would be at least around like 1/3 the speed of light. But the fact that they're dodging usually the initial stroke, which is the more reasonable calculation you would go off of, they're actually dodging only, what's the thing called? They're simply dodging the lightning coming down. So yeah, there would be they'll be around 220,000 miles per hour or faster than that. But if they did the return stroke, which they never do, would be 220 million. So this calculation, I don't know where the hell you got that from.
Per second. Now we're finally getting into the speed tiers where the main topic becomes the speed of light rather than the speed of sound.
Yeah, speed of sound is
as we get to subrelativistic and relativistic plus. And for the sake of brevity, we're going to be doing the same thing with relativistic.
Okay, yeah. The relativistic, that word always, it always makes me hard. It's hard for me to pronounce it. But yeah, he's saying the subversion is 1 to 5%. Subrelativistic plus 5 to 10. Relativistic is 10 to 50, and relativistic plus is 50 to 100. So at that point, you would either be half the speed of light, or somewhere around that range, or at the speed of light. At that point, you would just be light speed.
Relativistic speeds, as we did with hypersonic speeds, and leave the stats here. Now, obviously, the term relativistic is derived from the theory of relativity, but moving at relativistic speeds is often defined as moving at speeds that are a significant fraction of the speed of light, which kindly leads into the literal speed of light, which, unlike the speed of sound, is not dependent.
See, and the characters, when you see, like in Dragon Ball, when they fire energy attacks, I think their earlier attacks, even the earlier ones, a lot of them were, relativistic. They weren't light speed yet, but a lot of them were. Here's the speed of sound 4 times is as fast as water than air. Okay. 50 times faster in steel than in air. Just keeping things in perspective, light and air. Okay, yeah.
On the medium through which something travels through. In a vacuum, it is known as a universal physical constant that always sits at the exact value.
Yeah, of its on Earth is slower, but when it's outside in outer space is faster.
458 meters per second. In special relativity, the speed of light is often regarded as c, otherwise known as the upper limit of speed at which information in conventional matter can travel. C most obviously being famously found in the equation E equals mc squared, or the energy mass equivalence equation. Now, this is where some people feel like it should stop, because supposedly it's impossible to travel faster than light in real life, therefore
Also, I want to talk about this. I've seen a lot of dumb people saying this. This character can't move faster than the speed of light because it's impossible. It requires an infinite amount of energy. They can't see, they'll have tunnel vision. Here's the thing, it's fiction. I get it, if you're talking about real life, that's one thing, but it's fucking fiction. When we read a comic book or read a manga or watch Dragon Ball or watch, DC or Marvel property, we're not looking at these characters through the lens of our reality or realistically. We're looking at through a world of fiction. It doesn't matter. They can do whatever the fuck they want. So that argument that I hear people saying that, oh, technically it does not make sense, that's not how it works. This is fiction. Majority of the things don't work in real life. If that was the case, most comic books would be, too realistic base level, and a lot of the characters would be insignificantly weaker, and the stories would be a lot lamer, if I'm being honest. Unless if it's like, let's say, a universe where they're trying to make it more realistic, and then you call that out, that's fine. But when it comes to Marvel, DC, and Dragon Ball, I don't know why you're holding them to this standard when they're obviously not trying to be realistic. They're trying to go off to the complete extremes of, fiction. So I don't like when people do that when they talk about fictional stuff.
Disregard any feat in fiction that goes beyond that.
It's just ridiculous.
I don't have to fully explain here how this argument is just fundamentally wrong, dumb, and most of all, ignorant.
It's just annoying. It's like, stop using real life, realistic aspects to it.
And I do plan to make a whole video dedicated responding to that, but I'll summarize it all in one sentence here. If a fictional verse applies a contradiction to how the real world works, for example, a character going faster than light, then said contradicted law therefore doesn't exist within that fictional verse. Got it? Well, too bad. Ask me in the comments or wait till the
I don't know why that's even still a debate. That's so stupid. Like, it's fiction. Obviously, they're not going to be realistic.
Faster than light, or FTL for short.
Okay.
Again, for the sake of brevity, here are the
this is where we get to the comic book stuff. Wait, so it says right here, faster than light, 1 to 10 times faster than light plus, 10 to 100 times massively faster than light, 100 to 1,000 massively faster than light, 1,000 to plus to, you know. So I think at that point, once you get to massively faster than light plus, you can get many times as faster than speed, like millions, billions, trillions. And I think that's why these other terms come into play, because you have more quantifiable way to define them. Because once you get past the speed of light, you have to make your own. And then even with the own making, when you make your own, there's a certain level where it gets too big. It's like, you're not going to keep on making just more ones. So you're going to have to make something that's so far beyond. I can see why that is, but I do have some problems with it. But yeah, so if a character is considered to be massively faster than the speed of light, they would have to be 1,000 plus and stuff. So
again, for the sake of brevity, here are the differentiating stats for each one. So what's beyond being able to move at massively faster than light speeds? Well, now we're getting into what could be considered the main focus of this video, in which we will be discussing the 4 tiers of speed that go beyond finite quantification. And to help better explain these tiers, as I did in a previous video, we will be using the speed equation to better extrapolate and justify not only their existence in fictional power scaling, that is often known as infinite speed. As the name suggests, it is the ability to move and or travel an infinite distance in any finite amount of time. So what does that mean exactly? Well, say a character is able to travel from point A to point B, which we will say is an infinite distance across. If the character arrives at point B within any finite amount of time, let's say 3 seconds, they will qualify for being pretty high into infinite speed. And if you're aware of basic mathematics, infinite divided by 3, or any finite number for that matter, is still infinite. Of course, to be considered higher up in this tier, you'd have to complete an infinite distance in a shorter amount of time.
This is one of the problems I had with like the dimensional tiering one, when you have terminologies like infinite, because infinite means never ending. It's like there's no limit to it. So how are you going to reach a distance where it has no limits to it? It clearly would have a limit to it then. So people, when they use these terminologies infinite, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it's I don't understand it, but for me personally, I just think that it's just incorrect. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I know I'm going to have some people that have commented on a couple of my other videos disagreeing with me on this point too. But when I hear the term infinite, infinite means to me that there's no limit, there's no stop to it. There's no possible way in hell that you can go an infinite distance. And some people say there's other forms of infinity, which that set theory that one other person commented, I know about it, but set theory does not really work very well when it comes to like power scaling. This is completely different. That's just talking about combinations and patterns. That has nothing to do with this, especially when it comes to distance. Distance is a numerical value of how far something is. You cannot have an infinite amount of distance and have somebody cross that infinite amount of distance. That's the problem with his definition. He said point A to point B. That's the thing. There is no point A to point B when there's an infinite space. When there's infinite space, you're not reaching it. If the person does reach that infinite space, here's the thing. That space is not infinite. It's just massively big to the point where we don't know how big it is. We get this terminology for the universe itself. Scientists at NASA define the universe as infinite. The only reason we define it as infinite is, one, we don't know specifically how big it is. We can calculate through, the observable universe and based upon that. But then there's also the fact that the universe is still growing. We don't know when it will stop growing, how long it will grow. It also is growing at a rate faster than the speed of light, so we can't really track it. And it seems to be getting even faster, which we don't know how much faster and what extent. So when you have that many variables, the only reason we quantify it as being infinite is not because it literally is because it's an easier terminology and easier for people to digest than trying to understand it. Because we can't even understand insanely large numbers when we actually try it. the fact that you're trying to understand infinity, which is no end, is impossible. Yeah, it's literally impossible. It makes no sense for, you know, a distance to have a space to reach. There's if you have a point B to reach to or a place to come to, then it's not infinite. I don't think people understand the definition of what infinite means. They don't understand something that is so big that there's no end to it. They think that infinite means, oh yeah, it's big, it's super huge, but there's also a way you can come to the end. No, there's not. I want a true definition or explanation on how you can reach an infinite distance in any certain amount of time.
Than your opponent. So, what's wrong with Versus Battle Wiki's definition? Well, as of the recording of this video, they have infinite speed as able to travel anywhere instantly or move an infinite distance within a finite amount of time. Teleportation does not count. So, other than the parts that exist within our definition, let's talk about these two sections of their definition. They are correct that teleportation shouldn't count.
I'm gonna skip this because personally I don't care about BattleWiki. BattleWiki's dog shit. Anybody that uses it is stupid. Also, I feel like a lot of people go based off of these terminologies that have been created by, you know, fans or people instead of thinking on their own. And when you go against it, like I have, going against the grain about dimensional tiering or these stuff, people are like, well, no, you said this. Why? Who says it? These people that are not actual scientists, these people that are not actually well versed in this, these people that just made this shit up. I mean, most of these terminologies are fucking made up by the people. So it's like, it's just not reasonable. And I know, like I said, in fiction you have to stretch the truth or stretch reality because real science doesn't work like I was explaining earlier, but there's still a limit to it. And making shit up just to fit your narrative doesn't make any sense.
I feel like because they're using
yeah, we know teleportation is cheating. I don't consider that speed either.
They use an entirely section of their definition in speed. So, what's exactly wrong with this? Well, let me ask you this. How do you define traveling somewhere in an instant? Most of the time, especially in fiction, they use the phrase traveling somewhere instantly in a very hyperbolic manner to vaguely tell the audience, this guy is going really, really fast.
Yeah, I will agree with that. A lot of fans do over-exaggerate when they say this character's power is infinite or boundless. They're like, literally infinite? And that's the thing. If you're going to be doing these, you have, like, you know, these versus battles and stuff, and, you know, debating who would win, you need to be smart enough to know that when somebody uses these words in a show or a writer or whatever, there has to be, you have to read in between the lines. Is that what they really mean? Has it been proven? If not, then don't go with it. People say, well, it was stated in a guidebook that this guy has infinite power. Did they show anywhere they had infinite power? No, they didn't. Unless they were literally showing it directly, showing that they had that, then you can say that. But if they do not, you can't just define it because it was stated. People need to learn to read in between the lines. And when you say stuff like that, it makes you look stupid. And I know the stuff doesn't correlate to real life, but it does. If you look at like politics, if a politician is saying something, he can fool you easily because he says a word and then you're like, well, he means it literally this way, or this person said it literally that way. There's always context to it, and there's reading in between the lines. And I feel a lot of fans of these fictional worlds, they get that, they just can't see that. When a character says this character has infinite power, they might not literally mean it. It might be just a hyperbolic statement. It might not be true. If it is true, you have to prove why through actual like feats and stuff. You can't just say it because it was stated, or it's just going to be considered a hyperbolic, statement by those characters. So I do agree with him on that about the whole, what did he say specifically?
Tell the audience.
Yeah, going instantly. And I did see this before. Somebody stated in one of the comic book. They were talking about Superman, and they're saying, Superman is so fast he can move it half an instant. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean by that? And he was explaining in one of the comic books, it said an instant later he was there, and then it said half an instant later. They're like, see that? And it's just like, even though the narrator said it, it is a hyperbolic statement. It's just to showcase the intensity of the matter or the situation. The fact that you can't see that showcases to me that you have a low level of intelligence. You can't understand these statements that are not literal. Saying that a character went half an instant doesn't mean anything unless if it's been shown. Like going through like teleportation, they said they can teleport through a place instantly. You see them doing that, then you can say that. But just statements alone doesn't make any sense.
This guy is going really, really fast. Or they move so fast, the only way I can describe it is that they traveled there instantly.
Mm-hmm.
You can often see those cases in fights where one character is so much faster than the other, you can only describe it as if they were like traveling there in an instant. Essentially, referring to how much faster the opposing character is moving from their perspective and in comparison to how fast they are themselves, which can be classified as speed blitzing, which is a term often used to describe character A is moving so fast that character B can barely react or not be able to react at all. Essentially, the phrase moving somewhere instantly is almost never really used in a literal sense to describe how
unless it was teleportation, then yes.
Especially when the word instant is such a vague term in itself. It's really hard to give a definite speed to define itself. I even looked into definitions for the word instant, and many definitions either described it as getting somewhere in a very short time frame, or even an infinitesimal short space of time. Oh look, that term has infinite in it, so that should be enough, right? Well, let's double check its definition just in case. Oh, infinitesimal just means extremely small, or a value approaching...
I know what he's going to get onto. I have seen this video before, but it was like when it first came out, so it was like years ago. But he's going to be talking about the fact that instantly, even teleportation is not instant because the way it's been measured, and yes, there is a measurement to it, is the fastest moving thing in the universe moving the shortest amount of distance. The fastest thing is a light particle moving at the shortest distance, a Planck distance. So it's basically instant is how fast that can move through that, which would be such an extremely fast speed that you can't really calculate, and that's when science gets all wonky and shit and nothing really makes sense. But yeah, that's why they go by that. There is still like a space there, I guess, but it's just so small and so unbelievable and magical to our brains that we can't really comprehend it. But here's the thing. He argued that, well, that means any character that uses teleportation is going by that definition. But that's the scientific definition. Like he said earlier, which he contradicted himself in that regard. I think it was a different video, but I'm just saying that specifically for this one. He kind of contradicted that because he made a video where he talked about that, where he was like, he basically said, what's the thing called? He said that, Goku's not, him using instant transmission is not instant because, it's, instant is defined this way scientifically. And I'm just like, well, also in science, you can't move faster than the speed of light. But fictional worlds break that rule. Not saying that if a guy teleports that they're not going by the actual definition terminology. But let's be honest, the people who are writing this don't know that much about science. They're not scientists themselves. I highly doubt Toriyama fucking knew what how instant teleportation actually worked and the true scientific definition by it. So don't go by the scientific explanations unless it is stated specifically in the show, which he's even called out. He said that he has a problem with people using real life science when it comes to characters not move fast at the speed of light, saying, oh, they can't move fast at the speed of light because nobody can. It's scientifically impossible. He's doing the same thing with teleportation, where he's saying, well, technically, teleportation, this is how it works. Yeah, that's a real life science how it works, but this is a fictional world. Anything could happen. You don't know. Maybe in fiction, teleportation or instantly, teleporting is considered literally what the terminology we think it is, instantly, which means no time at all. Basically moving from one point to another in any point without any time being spent. Not even a fraction of a second or a fraction of that of a second. So yeah, that, I'm not saying 100% he's wrong, but I'm just saying that it is kind of contradictory and a little bit hypocritical that he doesn't like when people use that type of logic when it comes to light speed, but he uses it himself when it comes to teleportation.
0. So even when trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, this section of the definition is evidently too vague to be made a blatant classification for having infinite speed. Therefore, this aspect of the definition
just skipping this. Nobody cares.
Finite quantification, the number of infinity always comes up, as it is often referenced as something as endless or larger than any real or natural number. However, it's not often made clear to people how we deal with quantifying the value of it.
Is he going to give set theory here? Because I already explained it, but I'll go into it again.
And even some uneducated mathematicians that either believe, 1, nothing is beyond infinite, 2, the only infinity that exists is a true infinity, and 3, infinity is not a number, it is an idea or concept.
That is realistic because there's nothing in this world that is truly infinite. Even the universe itself is not going to last infinite forever. People talk about, oh, time is infinite and that's why the fourth dimension is infinite and stuff. But technically time is not infinite. It is dictated by the celestial objects that are occupied in a space. Once when those are all gone, there is no concept of time. Before, the Big Bang or whatever, there was no concept of time. There wasn't even a concept of time after it. There was only time. The definition that we give it is ones that we have thought and created in our own minds. It isn't a literal thing. It only became really a literal thing, later on when there's like planets and stars and stuff and there's rotation involved. And yes, there is aging, but the concept of time is far more complex than people understand. The reason why I'm harping on time itself not being infinite is I want to just showcase to you guys that the reason why scientists say that is technically there is no real definition of infinite. Even something as time as you would consider infinite is not. I mean, Hawking's radiation by Stephen Hawking was a theory written by him, which basically states that at some point the universe will die out and everything will be gone. What happens is basically towards the end of the Earth, which is like a googly years, 100, one with 100 years falling afterwards. Basically, at that time, what happens is every star would have either exploded and gone away, or became a black hole, ate up every other form of matter and celestial object in the universe until they all amalgamated into one supermassive black hole, to the point where it has nothing to feed on. And just like us humans, if we don't eat, we die. Same thing with black holes. If they don't eat, they start to slowly decay. And Hawking's radiation was basically talking about the decay of the universe. Once when every other thing explodes and, they all become black holes and they combine to one massive black hole, there's no matter for it to absorb. It will start to decay and then it will die out, and thus the end of the last black hole will be the end of life itself. And without the space, there will be no more time. So technically, everything will end at some point. So there's no infinite anything in this world that you can truly classify it as.
Those who believe in any of these arguments most likely are not familiar and or don't understand the idea of set theory.
See, I knew it was a new
Please
set
bear
theory.
with me, as I'll try to make this as brief and as digestible as possible. Set theory is a branch in mathematical logic that studies the concept of sets. A set being a collection/groupings of objects, numbers, or even ideas that are grouped together to be considered a single entity. Example being, a class can often be described as a set of students, which with an individual item in a set, the student in this case is called an element of the set. In set theory, sets can be either finite or infinite. In the case of infinite, if you include a set of all odd numbers, how long would that set be? It would be infinite in size, obviously. And the same can be said for a set of all even numbers, right? And a half of infinity is also infinite.
Here's the problem with that. Numbers and stuff, this has nothing to do with what he's talking about. What does this have to do with distance? There's no real... Show me a real example of infinite distance. Even in a fictional world, when they say there's infinite distance, if there was truly infinite distance, there would be no end to it. Also, all numbers and stuff, here's the thing about numbers. We made numbers, yes, there are numbers, the world is made off of mathematics and whatever, but numbers, we still made these up. We make up ridiculously bigger numbers, but there's no real definition to those numbers. We do not have these infinite numbers in actual reality. Besides, I guess you could say pi, but that's also a mathematical equation created by humans. But yeah, odd and even numbers, this does not, just because there's an infinite set of odd and even numbers, basically things that we made up, does not mean that the infinity, there's multiple infinities and it proves it, and that you can have an infinite amount of distance or space or time, whatever.
So what happens when you have a set of all real numbers, which would include all odd or even numbers? The infinite set of all real numbers would then be considered as a higher level of infinity, as it would be considered to be twice as large in comparison to either subset alone.
But he literally just said, what do you divide infinity by infinity is infinity, right? So if you add infinity with infinity, it's still infinity. It sounds like a little kid where he says, jinx, and then the other kid's like, or like, the dog dares, like double dog dare you, triple dog dare you, infinite plus one, infinite times two. You can't add on to infinite. The more you add on, is just still infinite. So him saying higher levels of infinite, it doesn't matter. At that point, it just amalgamates into one. Saying that there's two infinites, so that means 2 times that. You can't multiply it. How do you multiply and divide it? It's a mathematical. It's mathematically not logical or reasonable. I think he does know quite a bit, but he seems like one of those guys that seem like they act like they're far more intellectual than they actually are. Because there's other people out there that do know quite a bit of math. There's one guy that I watched, and he explained this far better, and he went more in depth. I forgot what his name was, but he did it better than him. And also, I'll get into the whole why these sets don't really matter and what he's arguing right here.
Even though both subsets alone would be considered to be infinite. In a nutshell, we use set theory to help better explain the existence of both levels of infinity and the concept of countable infinities within fiction. So hopefully, we now all have a better understanding on how to better interpret the number of infinity within power scaling. Now, let's get into why...
Okay, yeah, he didn't really get into that. Like I said, infinite distance, there's no way you can... Because there's no other set of infinite distance. He's saying set theory, you have multiple different sets of stuff, but that's talking about patterns and talking about, Yeah, it's talking about patterns and forms like that. It's not talking about just general. There's no infinite amount of multiple different types of infinite amount of space or distance. And some people want to say, well, there's an infinite amount of, what if there's an infinite amount of parallel worlds? So that means there's multiverse, but then there's an infinite amount of multiverses. There's no such thing as that. There's an infinite amount of it. There's no infinite amount of multiverses. That's just one that you specified into multiple different. Now, if you're saying like an infinite amount of multiverses, parallel worlds and non-parallel worlds, like, I guess you could say xenoverses, then I guess you can have some argument there, but you can't still destroy all those infinites. If you did destroy all those infinites, then it wouldn't be infinite. So yeah, the terminology doesn't work. Set theory doesn't work with this, especially since this is speed. How do we calculate the speed? By distance. So let's go based off of that logic. How does this set theory, talking about different sets of infinite through patterns and forms like that, correlate to distance of speed, distance being infinite? How is there different types of infinite distance? There isn't. So yeah, he doesn't make any sense. You can't have a dimension that's infinite in size and then have infinite versions of them. Because if it's infinite size, there would be no space for other realities. It would just be that reality because there's no end to it. When you think about it a little more logically, it doesn't make any sense. It sounds kind of dumb.
Below these 3 other tiers of speed. Next, we have the tier of speed that Versus Battles doesn't even believe exists currently, otherwise known as inaccessible speed. Inaccessible speed being defined as moving and or traveling any length of distance in 0 amount of time. But in order to better implement...
I like how he's like 0 amount of time, but what is even instant? Instant is literally 0 amount of time. That, obviously, scientifically, that is not the correct definition. There is some time, but it's just really crazy. But in fiction, that's what they basically mean when characters are teleporting, at least. That you're able to go from one place to another in 0 amount of time. So the fact that he was like, how does that work? What does that mean? So you understand how there's different infinities, but you don't understand how instant makes sense when you literally also defined it right here. It's just 0 time of passing going to another place. It's so just dumb.
Speed equation, we'd have to switch it around so that distance equals speed multiplied by time. So even if we insert the number of infinity into the speed equation, an infinite amount of zeros is not equal to anything greater than 0.
Okay.
This also helps better explain why bringing up set theory earlier was incredibly relevant, as those who believe that infinity is not a number are the same people that claim that you can't take infinity and multiply it by 0. If they understand...
Once again, like I said, these are mathematical equations created by humans. Like, the people that are saying that infinity is not an actual one, it isn't. It is created by humans. The numbers that you gave for that, the pattern of even and odd numbers, also was made by fucking humans. I'm talking about a real definition throughout space and existence, where it's proven it, not a mathematical equation, because they do have implications in the reality. But to go off of terminologies like this that are 100% have no real connections, because there is no real definition of infinity in the universe. Unless if you're using numbers, but if you're using numbers, that is created by us. It is not actually a thing in the universe. So yeah, that kind of contradicts itself. Him saying, well, 0 is this, that does not make any sense. Yes, 0 is a number. 0 times infinity, here's the thing. Infinity was created by humans. There is no real definition of infinity. And like I said, the definition that he gave was through another thing that was created by humans. So it all just does not make sense. He's going based off of that. It just makes no sense. It's contradictory.
In set theory, this wouldn't be an issue, as I've already explained. However, you may be wondering why it should be called inaccessible speed, and where that is derived from.
Also, like I said, nobody cares about that. But like I said, you can't go an infinite amount of distance in any amount of time. So for me to say you can't even go an infinite amount of distance in an insane amount of time, I'm not going to believe that you can go an infinite amount of distance in no time. Like, that makes no sense. You cannot, first of all, like I said, you cannot go an infinite amount of distance in any measurement of time, right? You cannot, because there is no infinite distance, and if there is, then prove it. Prove through infinity through distance, not through numbers or anything else, through distance. Showcase me that. What's the thing called? Going 0, there is no way to really define that, because even with instant, there's a very, very small percentage, like fraction of what there's due to be time. But if you go below that, we don't have really a definition of how that works. These are all just made up concepts by people, and he seems to be going with it, thinking that it makes sense.
It's derived from the term and would also be the speed equivalent to an inaccessible cardinal, which also happens to come from set theory. Let me explain. To add on what I've already said concerning set theory, it's now more relevant to establish what you need to know when trying to understand an inaccessible cardinal is. Firstly, what is a cardinal or a cardinal number? A cardinal number refers to when we equate numbers to the size of a group of things and are measuring a set of elements. As we already learned, elements are the individuals within a set. For example, if I have 4 cars, the 4 as a whole is being used as a cardinal number in this case, because it's being used to describe and measure how many cars are contained within this finite set. So essentially, an inaccessible cardinal is a cardinal that cannot be accessed. In set theory, there is a concept known as Aleph null. And Aleph null is basically...
I want to talk about this a little bit. I'm not going to go too much. I don't know enough about this. Like I said, I'm not a mathematical major. I've never been really that great in math. But there was somebody on my other video, the dimensional tiering one, the guy that was disagreeing with me on the Jiren video, he was also on that disagreeing with me and talking with me, saying, oh no, this is infinite that. This guy actually came in and mentioned this, the alpha null. This guy I don't have a problem with. He was giving more of a mathematical equation. He was saying that these infinites are all just in mathematics. He's like, it's not real applications in real life. It's just mathematical. So yes, there are higher levels of infinite, mentioning this, but those are higher levels of infinite, just mathematics. Which that's what I'm basically arguing here. But it's in the mathematical terms that were created by us, not in reality itself. And I think this is where people don't understand.
Possible infinite set, and only represents the set of all natural numbers. The idea of inaccessible speed is that no matter how many sets you try and add on to this, you'll never be able to achieve what is known as an inaccessible cardinal. Essentially, a character with any level of finite speed, all the way up to infinite speed, would not be able to move in 0 time, because 0 overrides infinity. 0 times infinity is still 0. So even if you have infinite speed, you still require a finite amount of time to move.
That one, it makes sense to the definition what he's saying, because he's saying that you can go an infinite distance, but if you take time, then you're just going to be in infinity. But if you can do that in 0, or move at 0 speed, you would basically be, it's beyond infinite. But like I said, the problem with it is there's no true thing as infinite distance. that is made up. He hasn't explained that. How do you get an infinite distance? How do you get to the end of an infinite distance? With time or without it? So that's why I don't agree with these. Also, you can technically do this at the speed of light. It's kind of confusing, light, the way it works. The reason that light takes time to get to places, we have light years and stuff, is because it has no mass to it. But if an object did have a mass that was going there, which is impossible, but if it did, it will break the fundamentals of reality so much to the point where time will completely stop. It will stop. So technically, time going at the speed of light will make you, basically move have like inaccessible speed, because time will stop. Stopping time and going at zero are basically the same thing. If you're moving so fast that time stops, so time is not moving anymore, and you can get from any place, that's the same thing as moving so fast you get there and no time at all has been gone. Because one stopped the time and didn't move, the other one didn't move so fast that it didn't even go. So it's basically the same thing, just doing that. So you don't even need to be this ridiculously fast in real life of using science.
Those characters would be unable to do so. What I'm getting at is the difference between an infinite speed character and an inaccessible speed character would be beyond an infinite distance. My problem with versus battles, especially when it comes to inaccessible speed, is that if you look in this content revision thread, which I'll be linking to in the description, where they essentially imply that they believe both inaccessible speed and infinite speed would technically fall within the same category, in which I believe
like I said, I think he has a bigger gripe with just, versus wiki and how they handle it and whatever. Personally, like I said, I don't even believe any of this. I went through it on quite a bit. One thing I do want to add on to this, this whole argument, I want to go back just a little, what he was talking about. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about is where I remembered is, I see people saying that there's these characters that do it. Can you show me some characters? I'm not trying to say, oh, you're wrong. I just want to see some characters that have, done these type of feats where they've gone an infinite amount of distance, or have gone an infinite amount of distance in no time, like zero time. I want to see that, because that type of concept, because like I said, it's fiction, so you can do whatever. But that type of concept is just so ridiculous and beyond anything that I just want to see how it would look in in a fictional format or setting. So, if any of you guys know any characters that have done this feat, please refer me to those characters, but not just those characters. Also refer to me where you saw them doing this, which comic book it was in, which chapter it was in, or what episode of a show it was in where you've seen this. Because personally, I don't think I've ever seen any character do this. Yes, you can go to higher level godly characters, but this category sounds like you can fit other people in it, but it feels like to me for you to get into that, you would have to be just like the godly being itself. But yeah, I'm going to skip this whole wiki debate between him.
Specify a character for having inaccessible space void. It's a place where time does not exist. Don't grant someone inaccessible speed, or even infinite speed. Firstly, a timeless void, as it sounds, is a place where time does not exist. What that means is, if a character is bound by time, in a sense where they can't move without time being present, they wouldn't be able to move within that void. Because again, time doesn't exist there, and unless time exists, they can't move.
That is not true. That is 100% just not true. We've seen other fictions where they had that. For example, Dragon Ball. We have two places where they do not have time. One, the Infinite Void, which has no time, though they did have a clock there, but that was going based off of like some astronomical measurement of time throughout just the universe is like a constant, a constant type of thing. And they use that. So the World of Void was a world without time itself. It was a timeless world. There was no aging, there's no stuff, because there was nothing really in there. They created those stuff in there. And then also the other world. The other world is stated to not have time in it. King Kai has said it to Goku multiple times. Time does not exist here. So this is incorrect, saying, oh, a world without time, you cannot even move. No, you definitely can. There was countless people moving in the World of Void, which was also stated to have that, and in the afterlife. So this explanation is just incorrect. He says right here, Kingdom Hearts characters are fairly well known for having inaccessible speeds for moving within a timeless void and then indirectly scaling to each other and this is why I'm calling this guy out for his bullshit. This is the dumbest thing ever. First of all, like I proved, just because there's a place without time does not mean a character cannot move there. That just means that world that they're going to be in, there's no time that passes through there. So I don't know where he got that idea that if you're in a world that has no time in it, or a void that has no time, that you can't move because you would be stopped in time when there's no time, and that if you do, you have inaccessible speed, is just stupid. Like I said, I want an explanation, and the fact that he's giving this as an explanation is just ridiculous. We've seen this in Dragon Ball. There's other worlds of fiction where they've had worlds or dimensions that time does not exist. And guess what? They're moving in it. I don't know where he got that idea. He's basically saying that all the characters or a majority of the characters in Kingdom Hearts game, which I've never played any of the games, but from what I've seen, they're characters from like Disney, and it's like they make their own stuff and like whatever. I highly doubt these characters are so fucking fast that they would put characters like Goku to shame, or put Flash. I know some people say Flash can do anything, but certain types of Flash is to shame. I do not believe that these characters are that fast, and this is not even showcasing their actual speed, because it's not showing them actually moving from one place to another. It's just them moving in a world where there's no time or a concept of time. That is just stupid. That was dumb. Like I said, he didn't prove that these guys are actually have an accessible amount of speed, and I'm pretty sure there could be definitely videos out there showing Kingdom of Hearts characters showcasing their speed, and their speed feats do not show them being inaccessible. If he wants to prove it, then he has to show through actual feats. Him moving throughout this world does not make any sense.
However,
because by that logic, that means everybody that went to the world void had an inaccessible speed. No, they did not. They didn't go any distance.
If they're able to move within that realm solely due to their sheer movement speed, giving them the ability to do so, that would qualify them for having inaccessible speed. Because again, it's solely due to how fast they are that they are capable of moving within said realm. It is not due to a special resistance and or ability that the character
Okay, see? So this is where he got the definition of characters moving infinite distance. I was like, how do you move in infinite distance? Basically, he's not saying that they're moving in infinite distance. They're moving in a reality where time does not exist, technically somehow preventing anybody from moving, unless they are so goddamn fast that they can move within an infinite amount of space. That did not make any sense. That is stupid. I already proved it with an example. There might be more other out there. I don't know if there's about the other realities and fictions of it, but that is just unbelievably dumb what he just said. So now this is why he's saying inaccessible and infinite stuff, and this has already proven my point that this is complete horseshit, because he's not moving in an infinite distance. There's no infinite distance to move. It's just a reality without time. How does that make the reality infinite? And how does that mean that the character, just because they can move in that reality, is moving in infinite distance? If it was an infinite reality somehow, and if they went from one place to another, then you would have had an argument there, but they're not. So that's what he's using as an example of it, and his example makes no sense. And like I said, you guys can feel free to disagree with me. You don't have to agree with me, but prove me wrong then. Prove me wrong how this is true through this example you gave now.
As that allows them the ability to move within it. Which leads into their next point about the rules of moving within time stop. So obviously, if time has been stopped, then time would inherently equal to 0. So although a character can qualify for having inaccessible speed...
Jotaro from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is often mistaken for having inaccessible speed due to him moving with Judio's stop time, even though in the same instance they explain that... Yeah, that's true. They have the same ability, and he wasn't moving through because he had such incredible speed. He was moving because he had an ability that allowed him to move through it, or he would probably just be strong enough.
To move around during time stop due to how fast they are, but qualifications would not be met if it was a result of a special ability and or trait that gives them a special resistance to time-stopping abilities. In other words, simply having a resistance...
So you're saying also if it's a place where time is stopped. Okay, here's the couple of problems with that now. First of all, the time stopping thing, I already explained that if you move at the speed of light, technically time's going to stop. When you get sucked into a black hole and you go on the event horizon, time stops. So technically just going at the speed of light, you would be stopping time. So you wouldn't have to be FTL even, or massively faster than light plus thousands or hundreds of times faster than speed of light. to be stopping time. You would just have to move at the speed of light. Scientifically, that's how fast you move. So the fact that he was trying to sound smart, saying, "Oh, even mathematicians don't know this. Set theory and this, trying to sound smart," but then doesn't even know that if you move at light speed, you're going to be stopping time, which is not even that complex of a thing that has been known by quite a bit of people. So yeah, there's already the problem with it there. Also, time stop. Characters have moved through time stop by just sheer strength alone. We saw Jiren being bind in that time cage by hit, and it was explained that technique was not it was not like his Tokugawashi, where he's basically creating a pocket dimension and then using that to skip in time and stuff. He's literally controlling time and stopping him, which he said, "Oh, that doesn't make Jiren what's the thing called? That doesn't make Jiren, beyond the speed of not speed, but beyond time itself, because he was overpowering Hit's technique." No, he was overpowering time itself. That's what Vado stated. It was never stated that it was the technique itself that he was surpassing. Also, the technique was stated that it literally is just stopping time. But yeah, moving through stop time, you don't have to be infinite. Also, once again, he's now saying that to be inaccessible speed is you moving through stop time. This is not moving in infinite distance in the zero amount of time. This is moving through stop time. And this also further proves my point where I said a character that can move so fast that time stops, comparing that to a character that moves so fast that they go into zero, is basically the same thing. So he also agreed with me through his own explanation right here. But yeah. Stop time, how does that make you have inaccessible speed? How does that make you go infinite speed when you go in light already can do that? It's just disproven. Characters can move through power alone. We've seen countless characters move through that, but I guess that means they're inaccessible speeds. It's just stupid. It's such a dumb concept or argument to make that stop time. Like I said, give me a pure definition of an infinite distance and somebody going through that infinite distance a certain amount of time, completing it, or like without any time moving. He gave me two examples, and both of them didn't make any sense. One, a world that doesn't have time somehow that stops you from moving unless you move infinitely, and stop time, which is not moving an infinite distance, and you can do that through light speed.
Doesn't mean you inherently now have now something you might start noticing is once you go beyond infinite speed, not only is the distance...
Also, that means Flash doing his speed feats is just, casually always inaccessible speed, which I know a lot of people say he's super fast, but he has never gone an infinite amount of distance. And even in the Flash comic books, when you see Flash hitting the speed of light, going through the actual scientific way it works, when he hit the speed light, guess what? Time stops. Every time he's hit the speed light or past it, and it wasn't even a ridiculous amount of past it, but just even a bit past it, he would stop time. Why? Because that's how it works when you actually move at speed time or faster. Speed of light or faster.
Numbers that represent the amount of time passing are getting smaller and smaller. But how do you go beyond traveling in zero time? Well, that's when we get introduced to the ability to arrive before you even leave. In other words, traveling in a negative amount of time, otherwise known as immeasurable speed.
We saw this also with the Flash in the Amazing Race one, where the worlds were going to get destroyed. Flash cheated. What he did was basically he moved super fast. He moved using the Speed Force, and in doing so, he basically stopped time. And when he stopped time, he was able to pass his other self that he had in that thing. So he basically just stopped time and went past himself. Technically, if you stop time, you can move, or you move fast enough where time stops, you can pass yourself. So you don't even need to be immeasurable amount of speed to have to do that.
The ability to move and or travel any length of distance in a negative amount of time. The reason we call it immeasurable is mainly due to how negatives play in the speed equation.
Also, that's not a negative. That just means you stop time and we're moving through it. So you can see some. You can go, like to say, you can go back in time, and then meet your other self. That is technically consider that. Or you can go back in time, and let's say you're in a moment where you're doing something, you move so fast, you go back in time, and then you run into that. You see yourself there. Also, if you move fast enough, you can create doppelgangers. What's his name? Godspeed had done that before.
When you introduce negative numbers, let's say for instance -1 into the speed equation, it essentially would mean that time is undefined, since literally traveling anywhere in negative seconds is practically impossible to calculate mathematically.
But you can, if you go back in time. If you have an ability that rewinds time or moves, you can move back in time by speed. You don't once again have to be ridiculously fast. You just have to be faster than the speed light. Because not only when you go to the speed light you can stop time, but theoretically you would be able to move throughout time itself and manipulate it.
Therefore, the speed cannot be measured, hence the name immeasurable speed. Now, although I do believe this definition still works, however, it was mainly put out there for consistency's sake, and there are many other ways to help better describe and or classify characters.
Also, those are the examples for an immeasurable, inaccessible speed, which is above infinite speed, and also contained infinite speed in his argument. If those were the arguments that he had in examples for what contains in it, which was already BS, and this is supposed to be above that, I want to see what the definition for this is. Like I said, he makes these statements, people make these statements, but they don't show the examples to what it means to do that, what it will look like. They just say it, and when they do it, it doesn't make sense.
Immeasurable speed, in a literal sense, is time traveling via sheer speed alone, as in they're running so fast that they can travel either backwards or forwards in time. Meaning they literally have the ability to travel beyond linear time.
So basically, he just means you can move you can travel through time with your speed. Well, as I said, countless characters have shown this, and you just have to be faster than the speed of light. Even in DC Comics, the Silver Age one, you see Superman, he travels through time a lot. He's mentioned himself that you just have to move faster than the speed of light to travel through time. You can travel through time depending on how fast, hundreds of times faster, 1,000 times faster. But when you go faster than the speed of light, then you can actually start moving through time. You don't have to go this fast or insanely fast to the point where it's unquantifiable. You just have to go faster than the speed of light. So time traveling, stopping time, you just have to go to the speed of light or faster than that.
Or better yet,
you won't have to go to these ridiculous.
Travel throughout all of time.
Yeah,
to
Flash
make it
did.
Clear again, this is only due to their speed. Abilities do not count, as characters who travel throughout time via teleportation or portals sometimes get confused for having immeasurable speed. So now we've covered traveling infinite distances, moving.
Also, it really depends on the universe. I think certain universes you can do stuff with certain amounts of speed, and others you can't. For example, in DC and Marvel and in real life, if you go fast enough where you can go fast as speed light or faster, you don't have to go ridiculously faster. You can go faster than that. You can stop time and you can travel through time. We've seen the Flash do it. It's explained. It was even explained by Jay Garrick. But when it comes to other fictions like Dragon Ball, there are characters that move at those speeds too, but they don't do that type of stuff or break the laws. Why? Because it works differently in different universes. Marvel and DC, if you move faster than speed light or the speed light, you can, like I said, manipulate time. You either stop it or go through it. Dragon Ball, we've seen Whis, his speed. I'm not saying he's faster than the Flash, but his speed where he's moved faster than the Flash has when he's done time manipulation. Obviously, he can go faster than that, but when we've seen him manipulate time, he isn't going that much faster. We've seen Whis go faster than that. He went throughout the entire universe within 3 hours at most, and that would be quintillion times the speed of light. Guess what? Flash didn't have to go that fast to do that. So technically, if we go by that logic, then shouldn't Whis be able to be his speed he's moving at? Wouldn't he be moving? Be able to go through time? But he does not. Why? These different universes work differently. Some universes you can move at the speed of light, you can travel through time. Other characters you can move way faster than that, and you still won't affect the time. So I think in Dragon Ball it's different. Just because a character can move fast, even that fast, because Whis is a perfect example. He's shown to move that fast in Beerus. They haven't gone through time or manipulated through it.
No time and or no time at all, and even traveling beyond time itself. But what can possibly be above traveling throughout all of time with nothing holding you back? Well, it's time to talk about the speed tier that is literally named after the idea of the very concept of speed itself being considered irrelevant to you. A speed so fast that both sides of the speed equation don't even apply to the character's movement. Let's talk about irrelevant speed, which entails that you are qualitatively beyond both the concept of distance and are traveling so fast that a character's movement transcends the very concept of speed itself. But if you look at Versatile's definition for relevant speed, it is basically referred to as the speed for only outer versatile characters. which are basically beings that transcend both the concept of time and space, which also entails that they transcend the concept of dimensions. Now, while it is true that outerversal beings most often have irrelevant speed, it is not true that an outerversal character inherently has irrelevant speed, nor is it untrue that a character who is not outerversal can have irrelevant speed as well. The reasoning for this is that it is possible for a non-outerversal character to have speed that is transcendent of the concept of speed, while simultaneously this same character in of themselves does not transcend the concepts of space or dimensions. And this is also applicable to outerversal characters as well, because there could be an outerversal character that is transcendent of space, but also lacks speed that is transcendent over the concept of speed. For example, the Flash from DC is able to run to the source, which as a low end is more than an outerversal distance away from the local multiverse, is an example of a character having irrelevant speed without being outerversal.
He says he ran to the source. The source wall is basically in DC. It's a world that encompasses outside of it. It's like this white blank canvas. Basically, from what I've heard or has been explained, is this is a possibility to any other reality. Basically, meaning that everything that happens in DC is contained in the DC universe, obviously, and outside of it's stuck in the parameters of the source. Now, outside of that parameters of the source wall is other worlds of fiction, because there's other worlds like, Marvel, Dragon Ball, Naruto. There's other worlds that have their own concepts and their own ideas, and it was explained by, I think, the president. He said, I might be the most powerful being in this reality. I might be, the god of this reality, but I'm not the god of all realities. Basically meaning the worlds that are outside of it. It's just a concept written by the writers of DC. Now, he said that this makes a Flash have irrelevant speed, even though he's not an outerversal being, because he ran to the source wall, which is on the outside of that. But here's the thing. The concept of moving so fast that you're outside the concept of speed doesn't really make much sense. He needs to give a thorough definition and explanation of what it means to be outside of the concept of speed. What does that even entail? And I guess you guys can say, well, he already gave us an example right here, the Flash ran to the source wall. But here's the thing. That does not make sense, because before that, this is the highest tier of speed, he's saying. Below that are the other ones, which were, moving in infinite distance or manipulating time itself, right? Which we've already gone through, talking about how moving at light speeds, or even a little bit above or beyond light speed, you can already do that. You don't need to be ridiculously fast. I mean, going faster than light is still pretty fast, but you don't have to be even faster than that to a crazy extent to be able to achieve a feat of that level. He's saying right here that he ran through the source wall there, right? So the other one's saying that it's infinite to do that, right? And that's below this, right? So if we look at that through that logic and that the concept through that logic, how the hell is the Flash running from the DC multiverse to the source wall considered irrelevant, which is above infinite? Because infinite speed means you were going an infinite amount of distance. No offense, but this is just incorrect, and here's why. Flash went. Sorry for that noise. Some stupid assholes outside. Yeah, sorry for that. But he's saying that him going to the source wall makes him have irrelevant speed. But here's the thing. The source wall has a finite distance. It's on the outer edge of the DC multiverse. And I know some people say, well, isn't the DC multiverse infinite? No, it's not. And here's why. I'll go into that. DC universe, it stated that the multiverse was infinite until, Antimatter came and wiped out the multiverse. You cannot wipe out something that is infinite. And second of all, they even stated themselves in the final Infinite Crisis event. They mentioned that how he wiped out 1,000 universes, and there's only a handful left. And then at that point, there was only 5 left, and which they amalgamated into 1. So he only wiped out 1,000, over 1,000 at that point, and there was only a handful left. I'm sorry, but having over 1,000 universes is not infinite. That is quite literally a finite number. Over 1,000 universes is big, but it's a finite number. So that, even though they stated it was infinite, it's just like how he explained earlier in this video where those are hyperbolic, and that was definitely a hyperbolic statement because they themselves disproved the whole argument that it was infinite, seeing as how he wiped out a finite number of universes and there was a finite number of universes left. Then we had one universe, then we branched out to 50 universes in the new 52. This one does seem a little bit older, so it might be that around that time. But even at that time, like I said, it was never infinite. It was stated to be infinite, and as I've shown, it's actually a hyperbolic statement. Because if you look at the Infinite Crisis comic and you read it, you will find out there's literally a part where they mention how many Antimatter has wiped out. He wiped out 1,000, and they mentioned there was only like 5 left. So that means only a bit over over 1,000 universes existed. So even then, he wasn't traveling across an infinite amount of universes. It was a finite number. It was just that they considered it infinite. So yeah, getting I don't know how Flash running from to wherever he was at, Earth Prime or whatever, or Earth 1, all the way to the end of the source wall is irrelevant speed. He didn't go an infinite distance. He didn't go so fast that he was beyond the concept of speed and time itself. He didn't move so fast that he got there within 0, or so fast that like 0 time had passed. So this is not immeasurable speed. If this is what he uses as an example for immeasurable speed, I'm sorry, but it doesn't make any sense. These classifications are just incorrect or either over exaggerations of what they can achieve, because him going to the source wall is impressive, going through the source wall and stuff, but it is definitely not so tremendously fast that it's beyond the concept of time itself. And luckily he does put up the issues, unlike Screw Attack Death Battle, where they state, oh, this character did this or that feat, and don't put up any issues. So I do congratulate Surfbone for that, but I don't agree with this being a relevant speed feat.
The character has destroyed an outer-versal-sized realm, but has not demonstrated speed feats of any kind.
Also, outer-versal, I guess, just depends. What it basically means is being outside of the confines of time and space itself. I guess you can say this for the New Gods in DC. They live in a realm called, they live in the Fourth Worlder, I think it's called. And, you have Darkseid on Apocalypse, and I forgot what the other guy is that he fights. Skyfather, what his name is. He's lives on the other planet. I forgot what the other planet's name is now. Damn shit. But yeah, they live in a realm that's outside of the DC multiverse's space and time. So whenever time gets affected, it affects the DC multiverse, but it does not affect the Fourth World. Why? Because it is a dimension outside of it. So even beings that are considered, I guess you can consider what's the thing called outer-versal, are technically, they don't have to be ridiculously OP. You can have characters that are out of the world. It's just that the dimension is not connected to a set collection.
And that'd be an example of an outer-versal character that doesn't have irrelevant speed. However, I do want to point out that these kinds of instances are not only incredibly rare, but is also pretty goofy as well. It's like a character having the ability to destroy a universe, but has like human-level durability. It's just a level weird that makes people really question power scaling as a whole, and sometimes decide to not even touch power scaling because
I kind of get the point he was making there, but that's not a really fair comparison. Durability and destructive capability are very closely linked. Speed and destructive capability, or being on a higher dimension, is not very closely linked. But I do get what he means. If you're going to be a being that's that highly powerful, if you can move at those speeds, it's kind of ridiculous to me, It's kind of like with the Zeno, what they did with him. He's supposed to be ruler of all the universes, can wipe them all out. But this character was surprised by dispo speed. It just made no sense.
And to defend characters that are just coincidentally that weird is just a lot of work. And outer-versal characters who don't have irrelevant speed would have to be immobile to make any kind of sense. Mobile, also known as the speed equivalent to a tree, which is none. But wait a minute, where is omnipresence? Shouldn't that be the highest speed tier? This is such a huge misconception, but I understand where the confusion comes from.
Omnipresence just means you're in all places at once. So basically, if somebody messes with time, you're technically, it doesn't alter you. So let's say you're in a universe, somebody goes back in time, they see an alternate timeline version of you. But if you are like he said, omnipresent, then you basically not have other versions of you. So somebody can mess with time, go back in time, forward time, but you're just gonna be the same one. You're gonna have other realities, but there's not gonna be other versions of you. It's just you. That's why usually godly beings have that. So if it's like godly being, it doesn't matter how much you mess with time or what time you go back in time, that person is always gonna be that person. You're not gonna really affect them because they don't stay to the confines of time itself. And I think this is what they should have done with Zeno, but they didn't. So yeah, it's weird.
Let's start off by defining omnipresence. It's the property to be present everywhere and anywhere at the same time. Or less broadly, the state of being widespread and constantly encountered.
Which is not speed, it's just you being. Like God, like he would technically be, part of it, but he will also be incorporated in all of it. So technically it doesn't really work
This
that
may
way.
sound impressive on the surface, but let's extrapolate the definition and give a few examples for why it isn't. Technically,
Isn't it impressive?
I or any living being would be considered to be present everywhere or anywhere throughout their entire body. And let's say you're literally a universe. You would be considered omnipresent throughout the entire universe. As you are literally the universe and everything in it, you would feel everything that is going on, and as the definition...
It's crazy how he's defining this is not that ridiculous, but then he was saying immeasurable speed, this speed is so ridiculous, when in reality it was not, it was just light speed. He's saying that omnipresent, he's getting it wrong. Omnipresent means all, omni meaning all in Greek, and present meaning present in a place. He's using specific terminology where he's like, oh well, you can be omnipresent with your body, or if the universe is omnipresent, it's all over. No, omnipresent means all encompassing, not a set collective of all, just all in general. Basically meaning if you're omnipresent, you're throughout everything. It's not just your body or time or space or whatever, it's everything. You're beyond time, you're beyond space, you're outside of it, you're inside of it. The only being that can be omnipresence would be a godly being, like the one above all in Marvel, or the presence in DC. I do see some arguments, some people saying presence isn't the most powerful. I don't know who is, but I'm just saying from my general perspective, that they're godly figures that are, the rulers of all that, should be omnipresent. And he's making, the way he's wording it is he's putting it in a strategic way where he makes it sound like it's less impressive, when in reality that isn't the case. He's using very specific definitions of it. Omnipresence in general, what it means is being all everywhere in general, not just in your home or whatever. I don't know what this guy is going on about.
You are literally everywhere at once.
No, you're not. So I'm not omnipresent. No, neither are you. Are you on the opposite side of another planet on the Earth? Are you on another planet? No, we're not. We're not omnipresent. He's literally misconstruing the definition of omnipresence to fit his narrative.
What I'm getting at is that omnipresence, or being omnipresent, is not a speed. It is as defined.
I do agree
a
that's not
state
speed.
of being.
That I
Relates
agree
to
with,
the
but
physical condition
another
of
thing,
a
no.
person, meaning you experience it all the time. It's by definition a part of your physical self. Speed only refers to a character's ability to move and operate. For example, humans and cats have the ability to move on their own because their state of being allowed state of being would be orcs and say, I'm racing, not dodge me, if you are physically everywhere and anywhere at once. There is also a common misconception surrounding omnipresence, specifically the idea if a character is omnipresent, say, for example, throughout a universe, that they would be omnipresent everywhere else. Omnipresence in all cases does not embody the entirety of existence.
Yeah, but let's be honest. In these fictional worlds, they're not including other worlds. When they mean all, they obviously mean in their own universe. You can't have a writer of DC saying, well, this is the most powerful character in all of existence. That means that he's more, he rules also these other universes. You can't have a guy who's the ruler of DC also rule Dragon Ball or Marvel because they're not owned by the same company, obviously. They're different works of fiction that are owned by separate properties and entities outside of, the fictional realm. But this is a kind of a dumb argument, like I said. I highly doubt anybody's ever said that. They were saying, well, this character is the god of this universe, controls this universe, so that means they control every other universe from any fiction, even if it wasn't written by the same person. I don't know where he's going with
It
this.
can be limited to certain spaces. A famous example of this is one of the primary villains from Spawn, Malvolgia, who is omnipresent throughout his own realm, but nowhere else.
I get that one. That one does make sense, but I mean true omnipresence basically means you're everywhere in all of existence, all realities, everything. There's no place that you do not
Anyway,
occupy.
that's it for the video.
So that's it for Surfbone's video about speed tiering explained. It's kind of a long video. I know this video is already 30 minutes and I already go on for quite a bit, but I just wanted to explain more and more what I meant by what I mean. I'm gonna go on a little bit about it, not too much, but there is some stuff that he's saying that I do agree with, some stuff that is correct, and I do think he's an intelligent person, like I said in my last video. But there's a lot of things he gets wrong, and a lot of things that I don't think he researches well enough. Like the whole video where like the fact that he was talking about lightning, and he went to like a versus site to learn about lightning and how fast it is, instead of actually going to search it up in real life science, because we're going to use that anyway. But a lot of stuff I already pointed out as incorrect. I pointed out the inconsistencies, everything wrong with it. I feel like I did a good enough job debunking this video and picking it apart. Now, if you disagree, feel free to write in the comment section what part you disagree with me, why you disagree, and please, can I tell you guys one thing? If you do disagree, can you try to give me some examples and stuff? Because I want to know why you guys believe this is correct. I don't want to just say, oh, you guys are wrong. I want you guys to try to like make me believe. I'm not so stubborn to think that I know everything and everybody else is wrong. I want to see evidence. If you guys can prove me wrong, go ahead. But you got to show me evidence. You can't just say, oh, this character can do this. Showcase an actual evidential feat that these characters have put themselves in that category. Because the evidence that he used, the evidence I use lightly, that term, it was incorrect. All these evidence that he used, I already debunked it and went into it, and I didn't even have to look through like no comic or actually research it. I just knew it because it didn't make any sense. The explanation he gave for these feats, all I asked was showcase me an infinite realm and somebody going through that infinite realm. He didn't show any of that. He showed other examples of what we consider making you infinite, but they were just not correct. I think this video, though it does have quite a bit of good information, especially the first half with the speed of sound, lightning, and light, it is very incorrect in a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to the bigger stuff. I don't take those immeasurable, incalculable, and infinite irrelevant type of terminology too seriously, because I think it's just incorrect and it's just fanboys trying to make reasoning out of these characters ridiculously OP power. Same thing with the dimensional tiering, but that has a little more of an argument to it, whereas this has literally none, to be honest. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I've said quite a bit about this video. I just want to see what you guys got to say in the comment section. I'm expecting to be disagreed with a lot, because I'm pretty sure generally a lot of people agree with him and this terminology and stuff, but personally I just think it was all wrong. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for next time.